The Sioux are plains Indians and famous fighters. The Shawnees are forest Indians and also famous fighters through their history. Shawnee society appears never to have numbered more than 2,000 members, but its warriors fought all over what is now Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio. Tenskwatawa, the prophet, and Tecumseh, his twin brother, who just after 1800 tried to rally all Indian tribes against the white invasion, were Shawnees. They failed, and subsequently the Shawnees were split asunder, the absentee Shawnees settling in Texas, whence they were driven out into Indian Territory, Oklahoma, in 1839. The absentee Shawnees numbered fewer than 500 souls, and it is their world which is described by Thomas Wildcat Alford and recorded by Florence Drake. That's a 1936 book he references here. Alford's memories commence after the millenniums of Shawnee warfare had ended, but the turbulence and peril enveloping the Shawnees had not ended. They were being swept into that forced land allotment designed to dispossess the pacified Indians and to wither their community life, which did in fact largely accomplish its end. What was their inward spiritual condition? What was the human relationship within the little group? Alford quotes in Shawnee the two basic rules by which he grew up. Do not kill or injure your neighbor, for it is not him that you injure yourself. Do not wrong or hate your neighbor, for it is not him that you wrong yourself. Monito, the grandmother, the supreme being, loves him also as she loves you. Standards of conduct were just as rigid as the laws of any other people, but force was seldom used to enforce good conduct. Each person was his own judge. Deceitfulness was a crime. We lived according to our own standards and principles, not for what others might think of us. Absolute honesty toward each other was the basis of character. Indian parents gave few commands because they were advocates of freedom of action and thought, but absolute obedience was exacted. All our histories, traditions, codes were passed from one generation to another by word of mouth. Our memories must be kept clear and accurate, our observation must be keen, our self-control absolute. A child would strive with all his might to win praise from a parent or elder, while he would be indifferent to bodily punishment. Our people appreciated skill or knowledge of any kind, but naturally they thought more of the wisdom that formed the background of our racial life. The sundered bands of the Shawnees met again after more than a half a century of separation. Although the two bands had been separated for more than 50 years, each held so tenaciously to its creeds, customs, and traditions that neither had changed at all. They took up their life together with no jar or discord, and again they were an undivided people. The Shawnees' life was spacious, unhurrying, deeply rooted, which many uprootings did not starve because the undying society, not any material condition, was their soil. It was a life of joyousness and unfailing nobility through the whole of a very complex human relationship, of freedom with inflexible orderliness, and of such a love for the Shawnee social institution as plants and creatures have for the sunlight, the giver of life. And in Alford's account, there is not one note of hate, bitterness, or fear toward the white oppressor, only this remark. If cunning and deception were resorted to in dealings with white people, it was pitted against something that the red man felt powerless to cope with on common ground, something for which he had no name. Thus would Inca or Aztec have also spoken. Let's read that last part one more time. There was not one note of hate, bitterness, or fear toward the white oppressor, only this remark. If cunning and deception were resorted to in dealings with white people, it was pitted against something that the red man felt powerless to cope with on common ground, something for which he had no name. Thus would the Inca or Aztec have spoken. So basically, the native people had no word for deceitfulness. Deceitfulness did not exist in their world. One love. This is a good one. Black Elk Speaks is a good one. Know the past, plan for the future. One love, one love.